Hey guys, thanks for watching for another video on Airgunseurope.com. I'm Dirk, and today we're going to be installing the power kit for the FX Maverick and the FX Wildcat. The power kit consists of a pin probe and a heavier hammer weight. This power kit has been on the market for quite some time now, but has now been, well, almost a year ago, it has had the addition of the Tungsten Hammer weight. This hammer weight adds a lot of more mass to your actual hammer, and that allows it to open the valve at much higher plenum pressures, which allows you to experiment with a lot higher energy potential. It also consists of the pin probe. The pin probe optimizes airflow, but I will show you all parts right now. So the first thing you get with the power kit is the pin probe. The pin probe is adjustable in length by the use of a 2mm Allen key, and you can use this to adjust the length of the little pin in the middle. By adjusting it, you can change the seating depth of your pellet or slug. The seating depth is a depth at which the pellet or the slug is pushed into the barrel when you load it. The seating depth, by adjusting it very slightly, you can really change your groupings. Do note that if you want to adjust it, you have to take it out of the rifle every single time, because there will be a pin going through it, and that will prevent you from reaching the actual screw. The second thing you will get is two cylinders to change the size of your pin probe. Currently it's a 22 or a 5.5mm. You get one for 6.35 or 25 caliber and a 7.62 for 30 caliber. And of course you get two O-rings. You only use one, the other one is a spare, and you put it inside the groove here to lock the cylinder in place. And last but not least, the tungsten hammer weight. This one is a lot more dense than the steel variant and will give you a lot more mass when you hit the valve of your airgun. Well, let's install this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to degas the rifle. Honestly, you don't really need to do this, because we're not going to work on any of the parts that hold pressure, but there are some moments that you have to pull the trigger in order to align everything. Most likely this will not be dangerous, but if you want to work the right way, you do it the safe way. So make sure it's not cocked, not loaded. And now we're going to twist off the bottle. This bottle has its own valve, so it won't go flying through the living room. Put it away somewhere safe. Now there's still air in the plenums. In order to degas them, you can either give the regulators a little tickle, or you can just shoot it a couple of times on the low power setting. There we go. So when it stops blowing air, you want to make sure this one is on empty, because it can be that only the first chamber has emptied itself and the second, the actual plenum, is still full of air. So this one is empty, so now there's no air in the system, and we can start to take it apart. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the rear end of the rifle. You can also choose to take it out of the stock, because we need to remove this end, because it's all in the way when you want to change anything in the rear of the rifle. On the Wildcat this is not the case, you can just reach in. So to do this, I'm going to remove the rear end. You can also take it out of the stock, but I like the rigidity of the frame. So I'm just going to remove these 4 screws, 2 on the left and 2 on the right. For this you use a 2.5mm Allen key. And there we go. Okay, next up we're going to remove the power adjuster. For this you use the same 2.5 Allen key, and you just rotate this one, but keep some pressure on the actual wheel, because there's a ball bearing with a spring behind it, and that wants to fly through the room if you don't. There we go. That's the one. So now we've pulled the lever to the rear. This one comes out. This is actually your second adjustment range. Well, it keeps the spring of course, and it actually has a little bit of extra adjustment. As you can see, there's a little screw, focus, that goes through, and you can actually adjust it from the outside with a little adjustment key. Put a little Allen key in here and you actually can screw this one in and out. Now what happens inside the Maverick, if you want to change the power, is you rotate this and the bottom number is the actual setting that you're on. So currently we're on setting 5. So what happens, you have all these steps, like a little staircase, and this screw pushes against those steps. Makes sense, right? So if we're at 4, we're on this step. Now what you can do is you can actually put it on adjust, screw this one out, and you have more pressure behind it. So with that you can really fine tune your settings. One thing to note, never ever turn this wheel when the rifle is cocked. If the rifle is cocked, this screw is pushing against it, and when you rotate, this is a stainless steel screw and this is a piece of aluminum. The screw will win that fight and it will scratch the entire thing to pieces. So now with the adjustment and the spring out of the rifle, we can pull the lever to the rear. You can actually see the probe coming out, and we grab the hammer weight. If you shake it, you can probably get it out. Usually it's stuck a little bit, so you can use your pliers. This is the actual hammer weight. The hammer itself is still inside the rifle. It's kept in place by the trigger mechanism, so we won't be taking that out. This sits inside the hammer and gives the hammer enough mass to open the valve. Well, until you go to a too high pressure and you get valve lock and you need to use a heavier hammer. This hammer weight is made for the 25, the 6.35mm variant of this rifle. They differ per caliber. Let's take a closer look at those. So here we have our 25 caliber hammer weight, and right here we have our 7.62 30 caliber variant. They have the same length, but the head is a lot thicker, and those two things, of course, you have more weight, and secondly you have a little bit more spring tension because it's pushed to the rear a bit more. And here we have our tungsten variant. It has the same sizes as the 30 caliber variant, but it's a lot denser, so you have a lot more weight to it. As soon as you hold them, you can really notice how much heavier they are. So just to give you a visual experience, this is a really nice scale for weighing out your ammunition to make sure they all have the same weight, but it's also great for this. So here you have a 12 point, well, rounded up, we have a 12.7, 12.6, whatever you want. A 13.2 for the 30 caliber, so a little heavier, and a whopping 26.6 rounded up for the tungsten variant. So this one will give your hammer a lot more momentum, a lot more mass to actually hit the valve and actually open it, even when you work at a lot higher regulator pressures. So before we install the actual hammer weight and reassemble everything, we need to install the pin probe. So let's do that first. Firstly, we need to take off the actual cheek piece so we can reach everything. We do this with a 3mm Allen key. So, put it somewhere safe. Now as you can see, there's a hole here, and if you move the cocking lever in the right position, you can see a screw. You can unscrew this with a 2.5mm Allen key. Pull it out. Put it down. Next up, we push the probe outside. Give it a little love. So here we have the pellet probe, hole underneath, air goes in, goes through the front. And as you can see with the pin probe, the air will just flow around it into the barrel. So first thing you want to do is take the pin that we just took out and check if it fits inside of your pin probe. Well, I'm lucky, it does. But I think almost 9 out of 10 times this will not fit. There's something with the finishing of this product that this hole is a little bit, well, oval or not really well finished, and this will just not fit. It will not go in how hard you jam it. And well, the only way to fix it is either with a reamer or a drill. So take a 4mm and just, well, ream it out a little bit. You can do it by hand, you can do it with a really slow drill. Make sure you don't throw this to the room when you're doing it. You don't want this in your face. So yeah, that's just the nature of how it is. It has been like this for years with this power kit, and it's never been changed. So, well, I think it's a shame, but it's a little work we need to do prior to installing it. Now first we need to change the caliber. So this one is a 22. If you have a 22 caliber Maverick or a Wildcat, you do not need to do the following step and you can skip this. We're going to take one of our O-rings, that's included in the kit, and we're going to push it into the groove. Here we go. Make sure it's well in, and we take our cylinders to change the caliber. We take this one because it's 25. If you have a 30 caliber, you of course take the larger one. Now there's a shape to it. I hope the camera picks it up, but there's a little conical end. It's been beveled slightly, and that one will go to the front. So it's beveled like this towards the pin. And just push it over. Make sure it's nice and tight, it doesn't slip off. And all done. So now you have a 6.35mm or a 7.62 if you took the other one for your Maverick. Now one thing I like to do prior to actually shoving it into the rifle is taking a little cloth, some ballastol, no WD-40, and just rub it in a little bit. No need to go mayhem, just a little small film. I've been touching it with my hands, my sweaty, disgusting hands, which will cause rust. So now it's all clean, it has a little oily layer on it, and we can actually put it into the rifle. Now one thing I like to do before actually shoving it in is an Allen key, and I insert it into the rear, and that is the same size of the adjustment screw, and I use it to align the hole. It doesn't need to be a long one, the short ones won't work because it doesn't reach it. So it needs to be at the length of the hole. We put it in. Until we see the hole. There we go. Now we take the pin we previously took out, also give it a nice little rub with the oily cloth. 2.5. And you might need to throw the lever forward and back a little bit until you actually feel the hole. As you saw, it just dropped in and I can screw it in. There we go. No need to over tighten this. Pull it out and check if it's aligning. Now, one really important step, pull the lever to the rear and check if this is not protruding. As you can see, the pin probe is actually going past the rear. So what would happen now if I push in the magazine, it will bend the needle. And then you need to buy a whole new power kit. And that sucks. Now if I push it to the rear, it is nearly flat, but I don't want to be needing to do this every single time I load a magazine. So what I do, I take it out and I'll just try again. Push this out. So now we take our 2mm Allen key and we rotate it to the left. So we're turning it in. So it will retract. We push this one back in with our key installed. Oh, not too far. There we go. We take our pin, put it back in with a 2.5. And you might notice that the lever won't go forward all the way. Pull it out, push it a little bit forward, and then you can actually start searching for the, and you saw it drop in. And screw it in. Again, no need to over tighten it. Pull to the rear. Yes, that's very nice. So now it's not over pushing it, it is still to the rear in a relaxed manner, and this is all flat. If you want to be sure, just push in the magazine, making sure you don't bend the needle, and just check it. But the thing is, if it's flat, it's good. So now we're going to be installing the actual hammer weight. So to do this, I like to take the oily cloth again, put the spring around it and shove it in. Now, as you can see, I can't push it in all the way. This used to go deeper. The reason is we've been moving the cocking lever a lot of times when installing the actual probe, and now the actual hammer is behind the sear and the rifle is technically cocked. So what we do, we give it a little bit of pressure and we pull the trigger and it drops right in place. Now, if there was pressure on the system, this would probably not have enough momentum to actually open the valve and fire a shot, but well, just because safety, we've degassed the system. This was the reason why. So now we take the little spring head, whatever you want to call it, give it a nice rub, and it uses this little screw to index. So now it doesn't fit, now it does, and it's in. Perfect. So now we're going to be installing the power adjusting wheel. So we've got the power wheel here, got the screw here, and the really frightful ball bearing that will fly to the room probably. So how it actually works with the ball bearing, there's a little spring here, and the ball bearing pushes against this spring, and the ball bearing pushes into these little knobs, and that's the actual clicky sound you feel when rotating it, and will prevent the power adjusting wheel from rotating on its own when you're walking around to the rifle. Usually the spring has a little bit of silicone grease on it that will actually keep this ball bearing sticking to it. If not, we just put a little extra on it. This little trick, you don't need to do this, it's easy for me right now because the rifle is inside of a rifle vise. So pull this out, take a little bit of grease, and we put it back in, so. Now we grab the ball bearing and we push it against the grease, and this will keep it sticking. So it prevents wear, I guess, but it's just mainly to have it easier when installing. So we have the power wheel and the screw. Before installing it, I like to clean the screw with some ballastol as well. The inside of the screw won't see daylight that much, so it's best to keep it clean. It's not stainless, it will get damaged, it will rust. So first I start the thread, so you don't want any cross threading. And this is steel and this is aluminium, and this will eat up the threads if you cross thread it. So make sure it is in the right way. Now I push against the power wheel, so the ball bearing is inside the spring housing, and then we tighten down the screw. No need to over tighten this. If you feel it's going tight and you don't really notice the clicking, right now it's just perfect, then you can always just slightly untighten it. Make sure that if you untighten it like this, that the screw doesn't rotate along with it like it does now. I don't know if you noticed it on camera, but the screw is also rotating. It needs to be tight enough that it doesn't rotate. The screw of the adjustment rotates freely. Perfect. So now let's put everything back together. So let's start off with the cheek piece. So there's no screws in it right now, because what I like to do as well with these screws is to give them a little wipe with some ballastol. These screws can rust and they are a little bit too deep to actually wipe off every single time. So this is a nice chance to clean them. You might notice that if you have had the rifle for a while and you haven't done this before, that there will probably be a little bit of sugar rust on the inside. But nothing a little ballastol can't fix. So don't over tighten this. The screws are made of steel. This is made of aluminium. You will strip the threadings and you need to re-thread and re-tap. Don't do that. So next up, the shoulder piece. If you can't fit it, it's probably because this one is too tight. Take the screws. I just wipe these off. So same for those. If you haven't done it before, wipe them down with some ballastol. Give them a nice coating, film. No need to drench them. Just make sure that all your oils and greases from your hands are gone. Same for this, don't over tighten it, but do make sure it is in place, because you don't want to lose these screws. Other side. Obviously, if you have a Wildcat, you'll be skipping this part. And here we go. It's all set and done. So now what we can do, adjust our regulator pressure to much higher pressures that our previous hammer weight could not actually open. We have come past the valve lock, and now we can use a lot more power on our rifle. We have the pin probe installed, and now with the pin probe installed we have a lot better airflow. So you can try out some heavier ammunition. It could be really heavy pellets, it could be heavier slugs. So next up what you could do is try to install the liner. But for that it's probably best for another video. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, do ask, do place them in the comments, shoot us an email, give us a phone call, no problem. Well, thank you for watching, and see you next time.